Dunkey announced an indie game publishing company, BIGMODE Games. So, he did a whole YouTube video about it, just sort of announcing it. He didn't really have much to show besides it exists. He didn't have any game he was publishing or anything. On Twitter, a lot of people are kind of mixed on it. I've been seeing where it's like, well, you probably should have shown something. And I agree. You probably should have shown a game you already picked out that you want to publish. I think that would have been a smart thing to do. But obviously he's new to this. Again, it's hard to tell with Dunkey if he's joking or if he's serious about certain things.
Yeah.
He's like, I know good games, so I know how to publish good games. I'm like, yes, I think every publisher thinks that, and then they still release, maybe something that's not great. So hopefully, it's mostly him just joking and having a laugh, and he's taking it more seriously than he's saying in this video. Because, anything in game development is hard. Even though publishing isn't directly developing games, it's still like you have to advertise for it, you have to localize it, you have to do a bunch of other shit, you have to greenlight stuff or give funding to stuff. It's a whole thing. And maybe a game looks good on paper and you fund it and it turns out it's kind of not great. That's just something you're gonna have to deal with. Hopefully he's prepared for that. I'm not saying he's not or anything, but it's definitely like a really tricky thing to walk down.
I think that him announcing, this whole indie game publishing thing is great. I think that he obviously likes to play a lot of games. So he wants to support this indie game industry in a way financially because he's in that position to do so. And him and Leah, he explained the story pretty well, I would say, of him and her just being like, well, we want to like fun games. We want to make these visions and games become reality, which is great. And I think that the video itself, my problem with the video is that he was, like you said, it's kind of hard for us to tell whether he's joking or not. But I feel like that this was one of his more serious videos, like when he quit League, he was very serious in that video. But with this video in particular, I also think that he was serious. So him sort of bolstering himself up and being like, I played a lot of games and I know what I'm talking about and this and that, is a little iffy and sort of him bolstering himself up. And sort of stroking his ego, if you will, which was not something that I would have liked to see from someone that's I'm trying to support the industry. Maybe be in a much more humble way to be like, hey, I played a lot of games. I know what I like, but at the same time, I know that he's not a big RPG guy. So maybe he should go and get someone within his friend group or someone that he really trusts to be hey, RPG. If I was doing this shit, yo, Damian, check out this RPG game that I'm trying to fund. Is this shit good? And then Damian will play it and then come back to me kind of thing,
I really agree with that because what games he likes are very specific. So him saying I know what makes good games, I'm like, okay, so no RPGs then, because it's gonna be mostly platformers at that point, which is fine. But I also feel like his scope in video games are very narrow in terms of what he likes. That I feel like that's not really great for a publishing thing. I feel like you want to give everything a chance because so many good indie games turn out to be RPGs and you wouldn't know that. I mean, one of the biggest ones is Undertale and that's an RPG. So it's sort of I feel like your taste has to be pretty varied in order to especially if you're gonna be by yourself, because it seems like it's just him and Leia. I don't really see anyone else that he's mentioned that's helping
as of right now. I mean, on the application thing, which I will give him props for, is that no NFTs, no crypto, no shit like that. Good. So he and her obviously thought about this in great lengths, but maybe not far enough. Obviously, he's new to this. He doesn't really exactly know what he's doing. All the publisher does, in my eyes, in terms of what I know, is that they just give them money and all right, here, fucking.
Yeah, but to do money, advertising, to do all the business stuff, basically.
Yeah.
But sometimes they got fun with it. I know Digital Devolver is really good because they're basically doing what he wants to do, but they exist already. Digital Devolver, they do publish hit after hit. They just published Call of the Lamb, and that was really good. Other games they did were all crazy creative and unique. You just have to have the eye for that stuff to really find these indie games that okay, this has potential. I'm gonna boost you up, and you're gonna sell well because every Digital Devolver published game does very well because they know what they're doing. So I'm hoping BIGMODE could sort of be a second Digital Devolver because that would be great. But if he doesn't, then it's definitely gonna be a big hit to his ego, I guess, in terms of okay, this is way harder than I think it is. So
I think that over this next week or two, he's definitely going to get very humbled in terms of like what the internet says, if he's even reading it at all, in terms of like the criticism and the response from it. I know that there was like a thread from like an indie game developer who was like, hey, you know, like, I don't know if this is like a good idea kind of thing.
Yeah, which I'm missing a lot of indie developers say that.
Yeah, which like I get, because like if you watch Dunkey's videos, you know, you'll know what games he likes and which games he doesn't like, because like he made like a whole ass video about like game reviews, and like he talks about on how, like, you know, if you watch a Dunkey video, you know what I like, but like if you go on IGN, it's like a whole new writer, a whole new person kind of thing. So, you know, he just has to keep that in mind when he's like picking games and shit like that, because like obviously every video game publisher wants to publish good games, but sometimes you might not have that judgment to do so. Sometimes you might be like, oh shit, this is not what we wanted. So, you know, and like the reception isn't as great and things like that. But yeah, me personally, like, do I trust Dunkey to do what he's sort of outing himself to do? Yeah, sure. I think that he has the eye for good games, because obviously he lives and breathes video games, and that's like his whole fucking career. And like after he quit League, he obviously opened up his, I guess, palette, if you will, and just like played more games that weren't just fucking League. So yeah, I mean, I hope that he makes good games. Obviously, I really do like the frog mascot. I think that that's like very cute and shit like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope it does well. I'm obviously kind of skeptical, because like in his video, he was very much like, you know, egoing himself, being like, I know what good games are and shit like that. And I'm like,
yeah,
I think he's being serious. So like, I kind of don't like the way that he's talking right now. So
yeah, and that kind of goes with his reviews too. Like, I know a lot of people say like, it's like, oh, if Dunkey says something, it's either law or it's a joke. So I don't really know anymore. So like, I usually when I watch his videos, I take it with grains of salt, because I'm like, I don't know if you're serious or you're not serious. So I'm just gonna just watch it and laugh and like hope it's like fine. So yeah, again, I think he is pretty knowledgeable about games he does like, and hopefully those are the games he kind of focuses on publishing. But I'm gonna give a benefit of doubt. Even if his first game he publishes isn't great, I'll give him a few more chances. You know, I think like everyone's gonna stumble the first few games or whatever. But if the first game is like a hit, then yeah, I'll trust in his judgment. But
yeah,
as of right now, he has a lot to prove, and he hasn't really shown anything. Especially for someone that makes fun of AAA games a lot for basically like over promising and under delivering. He hasn't really took that himself, where he kind of is over promising and not really delivering much of anything right now. So we're gonna have to see. So
yeah, I hope within the next 6 months he picks a game that people have applied for it and been like, hey, like, this is our game and we want, you know, this and this. Because I was just going through the application process real quick, and like it seems pretty in depth, where like you can check off whether you need funding, marketing, porting, you know, stuff like that, and like,
yeah,
you know, pretty much everything that you would want, or what they would want for your game is pretty much here. So yeah, in like a release window of when you want it to come out. So, and yeah, so it seems like they've thought it out, but maybe not fully. So hopefully, you know, this BIGMODE stuff does pan out well for him, because, you know, this is like a pretty big news story, I would say.
I get, yeah, there's a difference between playing a lot of games and like working in it.
Yeah, 100%.
You know? Like I play a lot of video games. I think I'm pretty varied in my genre selection. Like, like basically any genre. If you tell me to publish a game or make one, I'd be like, what? I can't do that.
Yeah.
So
same here, which is why like I want to do games journalism, so I could talk about games and not have to worry about how they're made, kind of thing. But you know, obviously be worried about the workers and the working conditions. But you know, everything about working on the game, I don't know shit about. If you try to tell me to like code some things, I'm not gonna. Nah, that's not gonna work. Yeah. But you know, even like marketing it and like how all that shit works, and you know, like
how much money things would need. I don't know.
I'm like, I don't know, maybe like a couple thousand. I don't know. Maybe that's too high, too low. I don't fucking know. Yeah. So, Dunkey's definitely heading into unknown territory in a sense. Hopefully, that him and Leah are able to work this together and publish some pretty cool games that I think that, because of his platform, are obviously going to be able to boost them even more just because of that. But also, just like one last thing, when he was talking about indie games, he talked about like pretty much every single well-known indie game, right? Like,
yeah, I know. That's kind of my issue too. Like, those are all indie games that are like humongous. Like, everyone knows about them, so I don't really know what that says.
Like, yeah,
if
Rocket League. I was like, bro.
Yeah, if you showed me like Frogun, I'd be like, okay, yeah, this guy knows what's up, because that's like that's obscure. But like, if you're showing me like, oh, here's like Celeste, I'm like, yeah, everyone's heard of Celeste. So yeah,
maybe he was saying those games as like games that he wants to publish, but at the same time, like,
that makes sense.
At the same time, you don't know if it's going to be the next Celeste or the next Rocket League or anything like that. You kind of just have to bite the bullet and see what happens if you think the game's going to be really, really good. So
yeah, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully something within the next 6 months is what I'm giving them.
I'll let you handle the next.